My name is Dr. Fred Baker. I started in the Center for Teaching and Learning in November, so I'm still relatively new to the Center for Teaching and Learning and to University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And I'm an instructional designer. I've been an instructional designer in higher education for about 10 years. I like it. I was a faculty member for 2.5 years teaching instructional design. Outside of that, I've been doing faculty support, training, development, LMS support, all of those types of things. So tons of fun there. So this workshop series is in part in response to the pandemic has created, as you all know, a lot of challenges and a lot of quick thinking and sudden shifts for a lot of people. And so we're trying to pivot online, trying to do that suddenly, trying to figure out what we've been doing in a face-to-face space and find ways to make that work in an online space. And from that, there's a lot of feedback that comes out of that. So some of the feedback that's happening is related to challenges that students are facing, challenges that faculty are facing, and just general challenges that occur anytime you move a face-to-face environment into an online space. So anytime you move a face-to-face situation into an online space, you have to be very intentional about a lot of things. And some of the things you have to be intentional about are facilitating and building those human relationships. And so a lot of the feedback that we're getting from students, a lot of the feedback that we're getting from faculty, a lot of the things that just tend to happen anytime you move into an online space are human-centered, relationship-based things. And so what I wanted to do is just build this series in response to those types of feedback. And the focus of this and the 3 other series in this workshops in this series is to humanize your online course. And so it can feel like you're in a tin can a lot of times when you are in an online learning environment, especially if you're not used to being in an online learning environment. Things get to feeling like you're in a tin can sometimes, right? That you're alone, that you're reading your book and then you're participating in a discussion forum that you've had to read and that you've produced, and you may not ever see or hear your instructor's voice. And so all of those things are the types of things that can make it feel very distant, right? So the goal here is to find ways to humanize this and to just come up with a few strategies to help. And so this is the first in a 4-part series. This one is being there for your students using Canvas, session 1. The upcoming sessions, which I would encourage all of you to register for if you haven't already, those are on teaching.uncc.edu. And the next one's going to be on February 26th. It's about instructor social presence. So really focusing in on that student-instructor relationship and interactions. And that's going to be with Dr. Beth Oyarzin. We've partnered with the Learning Design and Technology Department here on campus. Well, not here on campus, right? At UNCC to help with this series. So the next session is Dr. Beth Oyarzin. This session after that is going to be March 9th at 2 p.m. And that's going to be engagement and facilitation strategies. Dr. Florence Martin, and from the Learning Design and Technology Department, is going to help with that one, going to facilitate that one. And April 19th at 1 p.m., strategies for online interaction with Dr. Aisha Sadaf, who is also in the Learning Design and Technology Department, and she will carry that 3rd session out. But all of those sessions are really focused on immediately applicable strategies that are based around enhancing communication and humanizing your course. So all of those should have sort of quick hands-on tips that you should be able to walk right away and use. So this session, what I really wanted to talk about, and I guess I don't have an agenda slide here, but the major areas that I wanted to cover, we're going to be ways that you can sort of plan for regular communication and connection in class to build communication. And so we'll talk about that and share some resources. Another piece is just being present in the course. So beyond communication and feedback, how can you sort of be present in the course, especially using Canvas tools? And the third piece of that is just ways to establish agency and ownership. And those are a lot more flexible and open. Those aren't necessarily Canvas bound. And I guess I'll step back and say that nothing that I'm going to share today, even though we're using Canvas tools, is really bound in Canvas. These are things that you can use in a face-to-face class. These are things that you can use if you're using a different LMS. It's more strategy-based, but we're utilizing the tools available in Canvas to do it. So So you'll see today some of this. You'll see is this Canvas shell, this template that Jules took the lead in creating, and Jessica Capote and I helped create this in the Center for Teaching and Learning. And these are, we'll share it with you. The template has all kinds of stuff already set up in it to help with organizational structure for the students. And so it's a great resource to use. I'll go ahead and email in a list of resources to everybody. I'll email instructions for how to access that and import that into your course. But what it has is a homepage already set up with access to the syllabus, to the modules, to support resources and all of that. And it's got a module structure so that you can use that module structure consistently throughout your course. So to get back to where I was, we're going to cover today planning for regular communication and connection in the class, especially using Canvas tools, being present in the course, and some different strategies for that, and then establishing agency and ownership. Those are the three primary things that we wanted to talk about. And so the first thing that I wanted to share with you is the announcements tool. And while Jules is getting this set up, I'll just talk about it. But the announcements tool is really powerful and sometimes ignored. But every Canvas template has one. Every Canvas shell has one, excuse me. And what's great about those is that you can use them I recommend using them to create these weekly announcements. And I'll just sit down at the beginning of the semester and create a weekly announcement for every week in the class. And you can lock the module structures so that if you're lucky enough to have everything built out throughout the semester already, you can go ahead, if you're lucky enough to have everything built out, you can go ahead and sort of pre-unlock the modules. Can everybody see the course shell now, the Canvas course shell? Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Jules. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the homepage when you come to this, and this would have your course title and your instructor name, and this would be deleted. But you can go and see, you can access the different modules, the syllabus, the tech support. And so clicking the Start Here module will send you to the modules page. And in the modules page, in the template, we have a Start Here module. And so that module has things like the instructor welcome, the course overview, and things like that. And those really help your students get to know each other and get to know you. But what I'm talking about right now is this announcements tool. So it's got the little eyeball there because I don't have any actual announcements. But if you click that announcements tool in the top left, it'll take you to this page, and you can just create this plus announcements. You can just click this plus announcements tool button here on the top right. And that lets you go ahead and create the announcement. So I usually give it a title. I'll create one for each module in the class. I'll create a welcome module and usually some type of a goodbye module at the very beginning of class. And those are generic, but they ultimately say, hi, welcome to class. This is the topic of the class. This is what days it's going to run. This is when everything is due. Here's my contact information. Please email me. And, I'll give all of that kind of stuff. And then I really try to set the stage with something personal. And so, especially in those first ones, it's important. But I'll throw a picture of me or my family or a joke, or sometimes I'll listen to music and different things while I am working. And so, blues music or something. And so I'll share a blues artist, right? Or something, classical musician or something. And I'll just go to Wikipedia and look up a few interesting things about that musician and write a little paragraph. And it's completely optional. It's at the end. It's clearly marked like, for your information, or, just not, optional. But the idea is to give them something to help them connect around with you, so that they sort of recognize that you're not just like a robot who's grading papers, but you're a person on the other side of that screen. And that, I think, helps communicate to them those aspects. So when you've created your announcement, you can then delay posting. And so this button is really the magic button here, because you can hit delay posting and then post at. And I usually have my modules close at 10 p.m. on Sunday nights and open the next module open at 10 p.m. Sunday night. I usually have a deadline of 10 p.m., but the caveat to that is that a lot of, especially like working parents who are students, use that time from 10 to midnight. So I always sort of give everybody hey, I'm going to close everything at 10 p.m. just because I've found that it helps people sort of get to bed on time. But I also understand that some people use that time. So just email me if that's the case. And my real late policy for things is not 10 p.m. at night. It's did you get it in before I looked at it, right? So that's typically the next day sometime I come in and I've looked at it. So at that point, and I'll show you what to do in a few minutes, but at that point, I'll say, okay, where's your assignment? So the announcements tool is really great, but the keys to an announcement tool to use it effectively are really to just have that key information, those reminders, the upcoming dates, a call to action. So I always invite students to email me, and then something personal, whether it's a comic or whether it's a listserv or whether it's a YouTube interview from somebody in the field, or a picture of your pet or a picture of you rock climbing. There's a whole range of ways to show interest and sort of step outside of the content. So that's a great one. Another great tool that I love to use, and I'm sort of hinted at this a minute ago, is the Message Students Who tab. And so if you're in the grade book and you're next to an assignment, you can see who has submitted and who hasn't submitted. And so this little 3 dots to the top right of each column has a drop-down menu when you click that. And one of those options is to message students who. And so if you message students who, you can then select this drop-down and say students who haven't been graded, students who scored less than, and then you can specify what that grade is, or more than, specify what that grade is. I usually change this title because it'll say no grade or wasn't submitted. And I try to be a little bit more accommodating about that. And so I'll just say touching base on assignment 1. And in the message, I'll just say, hi, I noticed, so for example, if I check and people haven't submitted an assignment, first project's late or something like that, I'll use this tool to email everybody who hasn't submitted. And then I'll just say, hey, I'm just touching base. I noticed that you didn't submit the assignment. I wanted to make sure that everything was okay. Do you need anything from me? Is there anything I can do to help you get this in place? Email me if you need me, that kind of thing. Because you can offer an extension or you can just sort of touch base. It also lets you know, if you do this week by week, when people are really struggling, right? You can identify them early, because if you've missed one assignment, maybe that's a fluke, or if they were a couple of days late. But if they missed 2 or 3 assignments, 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row, you say, okay, well, now I'm getting concerned about this student. And so that's when I'll email that student outside of this, in addition to this, and I'll just touch base with them and say, hey, I've noticed that you've missed a few assignments lately. I understand there's a lot going on. Is there anything that I can do to help? And maybe even list some services, because you can connect them. You can connect students to all types of different support structures, especially focused on pandemic student success and pandemic related things, and advisors and counselors and all of those. So I'll put some more of those resources in a link that I'll share with you afterwards also. But those are important to sort of be aware of and share with your students. So the Message Students Who feature is great. The third big thing that I wanted to talk about in sort of being there through communication and using communication and connection in your classroom is email response time. And the main reason I'm mentioning this is because it's something that sort of comes up a lot in the student feedback, because we're under a lot of pressure and they're under a lot of pressure. And I think having a weekly announcement, and actually I forgot to mention something with that weekly announcement, but I think having a weekly announcement is a great way to sort of touch base and let the students at least see you. And it's even better if you can sort of slap a quick video or an audio in there, as long as it's captioned and everything, just to sort of say, hey, everybody, how are you? Because it brings that human touch, especially in an asynchronous course. But another way that I tend to use the announcements tool is if I have a project, for example. I don't usually do this on smaller things, but for projects or papers or things like that, when I'm through grading, I'll send an announcement to the class and I'll tell everybody, hey, grades for project 1 are complete. Overall, I think everybody did well, but here are a few areas where I felt like there were challenges or things that I saw that were common. And I'll just sort of correct those or address those or note those broadly, very anonymously. I certainly don't want to put anybody in a corner or share their private grades or anything, but I want to make sure that, they sort of recognize that these are areas where the class as a whole struggled with. Here are areas where the class as a whole did really well, and I'll share that with them. So those kind of things help you just sort of be visible. And then the Message Students Who gives you a more personalized sort of targeted space. And then that alleviates a lot of the questions and concerns, but some things that you can do to sort of help with email. I usually put in the syllabus that I will respond to emails within 1 to 2 business days. And so I make that clear that if they send me an email on Friday night, that oh yeah, Jules has a good Jules has a good reinforcing point here. But if that includes pointing out that if you email me on Friday, it might be Monday or Tuesday before I get back to you. Typically, that's not the case. Typically, I respond to emails, as most faculty do, at 10 o'clock on Saturday night because we just end up working all the time, right? But I don't tell them that, and I don't want them to expect that. So I'm clear that 1 to 2 business days. But the other side of that is that I have to make sure to attend to that. And so I do ask them to put the class name and title in the subject line. That almost never happens, but it's nice when it does. But those are important ways to sort of keep up with that. And another piece to this, I want to lose my place here. Another piece to this is to think about having a question and answer discussion thread. And so if you create a discussion forum here, usually, let me get to one. So in the discussions tab here on the left, you can create a discussion forum. And so, this plus discussion tab up here, and I'll just title it Q&A. And then in here, I'll explain, this is a weekly thread. Check it daily. But the idea is to post questions that you have here and to come in and help try to answer each other's questions, right? So I'll encourage students to get involved and share what they know and try to address things. And I'll tell them, I check this once a week. I'll come into this once a week and just sort of check for general questions that have been unanswered. And I've found that to be fairly useful in a lot of classes, not every class, but a lot of classes, students will get in and ask a question and they'll answer each other. And it takes some of the weight off of you so they don't have to email you and they're working together a little bit more. But you do still have to keep an eye on your email. The other thing, and I'll send you resources on this, that's a good idea, especially in asynchronous classes, if you can do it, is to create let me back up. And so Kevin has a good question. Can you make a video and insert it in announcements? And the answer is yes. We have on teaching.uncc.edu, and I can pull that up really quickly. We have a lot of workshops, and one of those workshops is on, so here's the teaching.uncc.edu page. And if you click events workshops, you come to this page, and then this little piece here is hidden, but it's the ctl.gosignmeup.com. That's what you use to find this workshop. And I'm logged in, so you probably wouldn't see that screen. You wouldn't see that screen either. Let me see if I can log out. Okay, well, I'll see if I can get to this, but you will see a workshop on Kaltura is what you want to see, creating videos with Kaltura. And that's a really good idea to attend if you are interested in making videos, because that covers how to make videos and how to use the tools.
Choose participant, and then up at the top, just click on home. It's hidden.
Thank you.
I wish that menu was darker and larger.
It disappears.
Sometimes the user interface is not friendly, and that's okay. We're showing y'all the tricks.
That's right. So, yes, and Melody, that's a great point. You can also respond by video to each student in the assignment comment section and leave voice feedback in the Speedgrader, and those are great tools. So this Kaltura Quick Start is what you're looking for here, and there are also articles on creating a video walkthrough and a course overview video with example scripts that you can use. So those are both great. So in this Q&A, wait, let me make sure I'm in the right spot. Oh, the virtual happy hour. So there is, if you're in an asynchronous course and you're not meeting face-to-face, but students still sort of miss that human connection. If you're open to it, it's a really good idea to create like an open session where students can come just drop into your Zoom session. And, there's been some success. Patrick Lowenthal at Boise State University did some research on this, and I'll share this with you in the link afterwards. But he called them happy hours. And what they did, though, was they just got together. Students asked questions. They got feedback. It was an informal space where they don't have to create an email, but they can come ask things that they might not otherwise ask you. You can tell jokes. You can get to see each other and know each other. And it takes about an hour each week. And he found a lot of response, a lot of positive response with that, and has some recommendations that are in the list that I'll share with you about how to create those and how to go about creating those. I've used similar things in the past in my own. It wasn't necessarily a formal like weekly or bi-weekly or once a month session, but I did have a couple of sessions in most of my classes where I try to just be available, and I've always found those to be really well attended, really engaging for me and for the students. And it also sort of clears a lot of things up and lets you see a lot of things that you might not necessarily catch earlier if you're in an online space. So that covers the plans for regular communications and how to sort of be present in this space. And again, I'll send you some more resources there. But I wanted to move to being present in the course, because that's another it's another very important piece. Maybe take some water. It's another very important piece, especially in an online setting, that is challenging, right? Because you have to be intentional about it. So discussion boards are a huge, huge way to do this. And let's see what I did. There. So these discussion boards are great. And what's really cool about them is when students post in them, they'll show up in your grade book if it's a graded discussion, because everything that's graded goes into your grade book. So you can create that grade as a sort of met unmet situation, or you can attach actual points to it. But I usually recommend trying to have a discussion rubric or a participation rubric that are tied to participation points for the course that wrap around that discussion post. And I've tried 2 or 3 different kinds of discussion posts over the years that have met with different types of success, but the ones that seem to work best are the ones that ask the students to sort of reflect on the ideas or the concepts or the content in the class, and to really just dig into that. Excuse me. And so those tend to work the best, and the ones where you can ask for collaboration. But the other important piece of these discussion threads is to sort of set due dates throughout the week. So if you use something like a weekly agenda, you can be clear with the students, you know, your first post is due Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I want you to respond to 2 people by Friday, and then I want you to respond to everybody who responded to you by Sunday. So there's 3 due dates sort of spaced throughout the week. Well, I know when those due dates are, so I can pop in Thursday morning after they're supposed to have made their first post, and I can go ahead and talk to everybody, or I can even use the message students who in the grade book to send messages to students and just say, hey, I noticed you didn't make your first post. You know, is everything okay? Can I help you with anything? Please have that done by tonight so that we can keep going. And so it lets you sort of be in the moment and sort of catch those students early on when they're maybe faced with trouble. The Q&A forum, again, is a great way to have this. Tell me, check it once a week, but ask them to get in there and just try to keep up with each other. And then also communication is important in getting feedback on assignments. And so this Speedgrader, which is I don't have assignments in, but when you grade an assignment, you come over here to whatever the assignment is, and you can grade it using the Speedgrader. There's little 3 dots, and then click Speedgrader. And if you've established a rubric, which we can talk about in a minute, it'll show up here if you've assigned it to that. You can assign the rubric to the assignment, and it'll show up here. You can also provide comments here. You can record a video or audio here, comments, and you can also create an attachment. So if you've got students submitting a paper, for example, in Microsoft Word, you can go through and make annotations using comments and things like that, and then save that and then upload that here as an attachment. So usually what I do if I get a paper or something is I'll grade everything offline in Microsoft Word and just make all the comments and then save it. And I'll usually put a rubric at the bottom, or I'll put an attachment with whatever grade they've got so that I can sort of quickly upload it. And when I'm ready, I'll go through here and say, okay, student 2, they got an 87, and then I'll leave in the comments like, great work. Please review the attachment for details on your work and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to meet to discuss. And the rubrics in there. If I have a rubric, I'll post the rubric in the comments also if I didn't use the in Canvas rubrics. And then I'll make sure to attach that. And then you can just jump to the next student and do the same thing. So if you've got 30 students, it's pretty quick because everybody's just lined up. Or if you're creating video or audio feedback, that's great also. One thing about this is accessibility. So if you're creating video feedback, we need to make sure that those are being captioned. And we're able to do that to some degree through Kaltura. You can learn more about that in the Kaltura workshop. So let me see where I'm at here. So I'll give also some important pieces. Feedback, there's a few important research studies that sort of frame feedback and the purpose of feedback. And I'll be sure to link those also because it's pretty important to sort of understand what feedback is and what feedback isn't, and to think about ways to share that. But it's especially important for this next piece because one thing that I really, really like to do to help build engagement, not with me necessarily, but with each other, with students to students, is to create peer review assignments. Because if students are able to sort of engage in peer review with each other, it helps them understand the criteria, it helps them give each other feedback, and it helps them move through. And it also builds engagement. So sometimes group assignments are great, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have, and this can look like a lot of work, but I'll have students do a draft and then give each other peer review feedback and make iterations and then submit to me the final version. So that is important, but what you have to do if you have students doing peer reviewed work, you have to show them how to peer review or teach them how to give feedback. And so the things that I usually do for this is share, and this will be in the resources also, but I usually share Grant Wiggins' work on, why did I have it? I usually share Grant Wiggins' work on what feedback is and isn't. And again, this will be in the resources that I share. But ultimately, what Grant Wiggins has defined feedback in, or feedback as, is information about how we're doing on our efforts to reach a goal reference, a referenced goal. So it's about as simple as it gets. We're really talking about information on how you're doing. It's your progress. So it's not advice. It's not this should be pink or anything like that. It's this works well, this doesn't work well. And so he's got some examples here. Goal reference, it needs to be tangible and transparent, actionable, user-friendly, timely, ongoing, and consistent. But I usually try to talk to the students about what this means because I expect them to use the rubric that I provide and this mindset to help other students get information about how they're doing on that goal of making a successful paper. And I think helping frame it that way helps the students feel more comfortable about where they're at, and how comfortable they feel giving other people feedback, because it's sort of a tender thing, right? I'm talking to my teammate and I'm telling them like, well, this could have been better, this could have been worse, and it feels weird. So if you can just sort of give them practice at doing that in a more objective fashion, it's very, very helpful. I want to step back and look at rubrics really quickly. If I can get back to, there we go. And so on the left here, on your home menu on the left here, inside of the course, you'll see one of these options is rubrics. And so you can click on rubric. And one of the cool things about rubrics is that when you create them in Canvas, it saves them. So you can look them up and find other rubrics later. But it's pretty easy. I know I just skipped a step without announcing it, so let me back up. You click the rubrics button. Oh, I backed up too far. You click rubrics on the side navigation menu and then add rubric here in the top right. And the cool thing about rubrics is they let you just sort of quickly comment or mark assignments. So especially if you've got a lot of assignments, you can quickly assign points and post comments there. But I'll create the title, say paper one rubric. And then you just go through these criteria and you can add criterion with this little plus criterion button, or you can edit existing criterion with a little pencil next to it. So, maybe this one is professionally written. And so inside of that, I'll say things, the description will be stuff like free, largely free from grammatical errors, typos, uses APA formatting, cites 3 sources, whatever criteria I want that to be. And I can talk about how many points that is and all of that. And then you can just add another criterion down here. And so once we'll call this one, I don't know, format. And so you can just talk about what each one of these are. But when you're through with that, you can create rubric here. And so once it's created, you'll be able to attach it to assignments. So now I'm going to go to the assignments tab here. And you can just create an assignment with this plus assignment up here. I'll give it a title. And you go through and give it a title and a description and the points and what group it's in and all of this stuff. And we can walk you through how to do all of these things. There are workshops on how to use Canvas, on how to set up grade books, on all of these things. But what you're looking for, actually, I don't think it's on this page. I think you have to have the rubric. Let's see, give me just a second. I had this. That's what I get for. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And then, okay, yeah, so when you save it, it brings to this, and then you get the chance to add rubric here with this plus rubric. And plus rubric, and the one that I had pulls up, but you can also find a rubric using this dialog here. When you have this rubric, you can choose whether you're going to put freeform comments or not. You can choose whether you want points or whether this is just formative. So it might be more comfortable for your students who are peer reviewing to have a peer review rubric that's the same as what you're going to grade them on, but rather than having points in it so the students don't feel like they're grading each other, you can just have feedback comments, and so they can share feedback. So you can click this. There are other options for using it for grading, which you'll want to do, and hiding scores and those kind of things. So ultimately, though, you create that rubric. That was because I didn't set the points to match. It gave me a warning. And that's attached to that assignment now. So when you grade that assignment in the Speedgrader, the grades module, let's see. Oh, it's not published. Let me see if I can publish it. Anyway, when you grade it, it'll show up in the Speedgrader there. So that's what's really cool. Let's see if I can go to this and publish it so that you can see. There we go. Okay, so you can, now there's a view rubric section. And when you view the rubric, again, this isn't, I didn't put many criteria in here, but you can see the criterion and it'll have the description and you can make comments about that. And you can even save those comments for reuse later. So if you find yourself saying, it needs 3 references to APA or whatever, and you can say how many points they got. There are other versions if you don't use, if there are more than one criteria where you can just sort of click the points, and that works also. So I feel like I need to move on to the next section, but that's an important piece, those rubrics. Another important thing to do is to look at, to view assignments and to have formative evaluation opportunities, to have formative assessment opportunities, which are really not so much for grading as they are to help students understand how they might get better. And I don't know if you can hide the rubrics from student view, but I will say I don't think you'll want to hide the rubrics from student view. Because you'll want them to be able to see what they're being graded on and what the criteria they're being graded on. But what you might be asking about is while you're grading, can you mute an assignment? And so if that's it, then you can mute an assignment. with this little eyeball here, it's a post or hide grades. And so you can hide the grades so that students can't see while you're making adjustments to the different grades. Because I know sometimes you start off and then you get to the end and you're like, maybe I was being a little hard on those, or maybe I wasn't being hard enough on those. And so you kind of go back and even things out. So I think that might be what you're getting at, but it's a good question. But going back to formative assessments, what you really want our students to sort of see, to have opportunities to practice being what they're going to be, right? You want them to practice making decisions. You want them to practice thinking about the content and the evidence and the things that the way that you're wanting. So rather than having a summative assessment, which is just extracting whether they can do that or not, they also need a lot of opportunity to practice. So doing things like formative assessments, draft assignments, things like that is important pedagogically to give them the chance to sort of engage and go back with making those low stakes mistakes, right? They can make mistakes when it's not going to cost them 10% of their grade. And it lets them sort of explore it a little bit too. And so there are things that you can do in that space. And those fall more in line with the establishing agency and ownership pieces that I wanted to talk about as the third major piece to this. Grab something to drink. And so those establishing agency and ownership pieces are more pedagogical than Canvas oriented, but you can still use Canvas to sort of carry these things out. And so one of the things I recommend is trying to provide some student choice, maybe by using different grading schemas or different types of assignments, using formative assignments with drafts, I have something that I call the small assignment bank. You're very welcome to use it, but ultimately what it is I create one generic rubric. And I teach instructional design, and so mine's instructional design related, but you can think of the corollary for your department. But I come up with a general rubric that's basically, it's something along the lines of content and criterion, and it's the quality, right? Did you do it well? Does it work technically? Does it work functionally? Does it work aesthetically? So aesthetics, functionality, and technical functionality are general categories. And that basically means, does it look professional? Does it work like it's supposed to? And does it contain, the content? Does it contain evidence that you actually studied and produced things? But inside of that small assignment bank that's governed by that rubric I just described, there are maybe 15 different options that a student might do to accomplish that assignment. And so those are things like they might go watch a movie and then write a 1 or 2 or 3 page essay or a reflection on how technology was used in relation to learning in that movie. Or they might create an infographic that sort of summarizes the research, or they might do a literature review, or they might make a video pitch, a 3-minute video pitch of a proposal, or they might go look at some learning tool or some software or some website and break down how they're using learning, or how adult learning theory is imbued in that resource, or whatever the content is around that space. I also tend to share with them, things like write a paper, all of that. And so at the end of that list, there's also one that says, make a pitch, right? Propose to me whatever you're interested in, and we'll see if we can make it work. And so that's a good idea for a way to sort of provide agency. Another option is to use a learning contract, which is similar to that, but rather than it being in one assignment, you've got a bunch of different assignments sort of grouped out throughout the semester. And it's all the things that you want them to do, but maybe, this tier has a paper or a video or a proposal or something else that you're willing to let them do. And they pick between that. So you say, this 200 points is going to that. And I'm gonna accomplish this learning objective in that way. This sounds like a lot of work, and at the very beginning, it does take some space to sort of build a rubric that's going to carry across all of these things, and to build assignment descriptions that are good enough to sort of fit all of those different angles. But I've found that if I create a good general rubric and a good generalized, these are the criteria type assignment, and then I give the students some prompts or some ideas, they're able to typically go on and create really good assignments around that, and they just seem to be more energized from it because they've had some choice in what they've done. they've gotten to pick. It's usually something creative or fun, so they get to sort of show their chops there, and build out in that space. So those are great options. And even if you don't want to go to that scale, sometimes maybe you've got a project and a paper and something else, but it's static, right? I'm going to have this paper and this project and this whatever else, this exam. Sometimes I've found to let students wait, even just between those, if they say, you basically tell them, okay, you've got 300 points to allot however you choose between this project and this assignment. Now, these become challenging to do in Canvas, but you can basically use categories. As the last one especially becomes challenging to do in Canvas. But if you're using static categories, like the first two examples I mentioned, the small assignment bank and then learning contracts, you're not dealing with a bunch of different things at that point. What you're dealing with from a Canvas perspective is project one. And project one, for some people, they might choose the movie, and some people might choose the reflection, and some people might use the infographic, for example. But it's all going to be 200 points. It's all going to be the project. It's all going to be governed with the same rubric. So you can grade that in Canvas without any substantive change. The third thing I mentioned, where you're allotting different points for different assignments, gets really tricky with the gradebook. So that's going to take, I guess I wouldn't recommend that, but I just wanted to mention it as a way to give some agency to your students. But if that's something you're really interested in, you can email us at help@uncc.edu, and we can try to help you figure out how to set that up so that it won't mess your gradebook up substantively. So those are the big things. I do have, we've got about 12 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have some time for discussion. But let me just make sure that I've made it through all of the key stuff. I guess the last main point that I wanted to make is for humanizing your courses to really just, and you probably already do a lot of this, but recognizing that your students, are in this space, it's important to find ways to help them energize and help them learn to identify with the profession, with the types of decisions they're going to be making, with the way that things are done in the real world of that profession, whatever content class you're teaching, but to also recognize that they're going through a lot. So being flexible with deadlines, being in touch, helping them think of ways to sort of engage, having a sick policy or some description of what might happen if they get sick or if you get sick. Sharing with them where they're at grade-wise and where the max they could possibly be grade-wise before, a week or two before the drop deadline, so that they can make a decision as to whether it makes sense to stay in your course. All of those are great opportunities to sort of engage with your students. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we've got an opportunity for any questions, any discussion, anything like that. So I'm going to stop talking and open the floor to you. So it's open mic, just unmute yourselves and feel free to ask. I'm also going to be monitoring the chat. And Jules, if you're not otherwise engaged, I'll invite you to come help me answer this piece if you're interested.
I'm happy to help you, of course.
And these are some resources I'll post up here. But anybody has any questions, I would love to spend time on those.
Fred, I was going to add that it's also good to maybe send encouragement videos as part of your announcements during midterms. Also, since we do, at least in my class, have some pretty strict deadlines about assignments, I try to give them tips on how to manage their time better and when to start certain assignments and how to manage each assignment as it approaches the deadline.
Yes.
So whatever we can do to encourage using that announcements tab or even through individual video comments, that can help the students.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's super important. And I meant to mention that in the message students who, but you can also say message students who made above a certain amount. And so you can send those students and just say, great work. Thank you so much. Right. So those types of positive reinforcements are super important. Thank you so much.
I have a question. So
yes, sir.
Can you use videos in discussion boards where they can respond by video instead of typing?
That's a Jules question. You have to unlink Jules.
Oh, yes.
I know the answers. I know the
Oh,
answer. Somebody
yes.
said the dreaded word in the chat too.
The answer is yeah. Well, so
Semi-dreaded
flip.
word.
You can use Flipgrid. Flipgrid is not enterprise-wide supported, which means UNC
Right.
Charlotte doesn't pay for it. So if something doesn't work with it, then you don't get any support from us on making it work, unfortunately. However, Fred is going to send you an email after this, and Fred, I will point you towards the hidden FAQs on
Oh,
Flipgrid,
nice.
and you can share those with everyone. But to Kevin, to your point, an enterprise-wide supported solution that we do have that will allow you to do exactly what you just talked about is Kaltura. So as you all, if you've taken Kaltura classes with me yet, or if you're going to take a Kaltura class with me, you can make these short instructional videos. I mean, well, I say short because that's best practice. You can make them as long as you need them to be, but we'll talk about that. Your students can use Kaltura to do the exact same thing. So when you record a screen capture video with your camera on, captures your screen, captures your video, and that video goes into your My Media. Your students can do the same thing. So they can record a response to a discussion prompt using Kaltura. It goes into their My Media, and then in the discussion forum, in the rich content editor, there's an embed Kaltura media button, and they can embed their video that they recorded through Kaltura, through Canvas. And this really is an excellent way to get your students seeing each other, seeing their body language, seeing their faces, engaging them in a way that is just, not able, I mean, it's much deeper and richer than just having them type some words. So yes, you can do it with Kaltura. Come to Kaltura. We'll talk more about that. Thank you. I see that Tanya has her hand up. So Kevin, did I answer your question before I go to Tanya?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for that, Jules.
No problem.
Tanya, you can just unmute whenever you're.
Okay, yep. So the question I had was in the chat, and I believe Deborah posted it right. We posted it at the same time. So when I make the weekly announcements, I do send out a video with it if I'm Kaltura, but it doesn't show up in the email. Is that normal? Or is there a trick to getting it to show up? It'll be in the Canvas announcement. So I just tell my students, go watch the video in Canvas, because now I know it doesn't show up. But
yeah, the videos don't go because the videos are in My Media in Canvas. They're linking, you might embed it in a page in Canvas or in a discussion in Canvas. If you embed the video in the announcement, if they're in Canvas, they can see the video. But the email that gets thrown to Google, it can't handle it. And so you have to drive them to maybe you could give some text in the email saying, there's a video that goes along with this. Please log into Canvas to view it under announcements. That would be my
yeah, that's usually what I do. I just say sometimes it doesn't show up in email, but really it's every time. But I just so that's good to know. Thank you so much, Jules.
No problem.
Jules, Jay asked us to discuss the podcast feed and discussions, and I have to tell you, I don't think I've ever noticed that in Canvas. Do you know?
So there is an option for podcast. I've never played with the podcast button, to be honest with you. I would say if you're interested in using that, call Canvas help or chat Canvas help. But again, I'm going to say Kaltura, because Kaltura will also just do audio recording. And so you can record with Kaltura, you can turn off the video, you can turn off the screen capture, and you can just record audio, and you can essentially create a podcast with Kaltura and then embed it into your course. And so I'm not sure how the podcast checkbox interacts. I've never actually ever used it before. So I would say if you're interested in that, do chat or call Canvas help, because they will know all about it. And there's Canvas help guides as well. You can see what Fred's showing on the screen right now. If you click on the Canvas help guides, click on help again, and then at the top, click on the Canvas help guides right under the little panda there, and then just type in discussion podcast, and there's probably step-by-step show me, tell me directions on how to do it right here. Yeah,
I'm sure there are. They have tools. They have how do I enable podcasts? How do I subscribe to a discussion podcast? But they typically have examples or articles for everything you can think of. And what's really cool is that we subscribe to Canvas hotline help. So if you need, and if you can't find it there, you can just call them at Canvas support hotline, here, this number, or you can open an instant chat with them. So those are great ways. And I wanted to make sure to show you that. So thank you so much for sharing that. We've got just another couple of minutes if anybody else has anything that they want to ask or throw in or discuss. Or if you don't have any other questions, I would love to hear if there's anything in the workshop that you found especially useful that you think you will use, or something that we didn't cover that you wish we would have covered that you would like to use. And because I just want to make sure that, I want to think about where we're going, and I want to make sure that you're carrying this forward to your students. So. Oh, good. Message students Humility is probably my favorite Canvas tool.
Yeah, this is Candace. I wasn't aware of that feature, and I love that feature that you just shared. I can see that being very useful.
It is, and what's most best about it is that if you've got something to do on like Wednesday night, you can check Thursday morning, and it takes 10 minutes to email everybody and just sort of touch base. You can really connect with people who have missed. You can let people know what the timeline is for when you might be able to grade it, all of that stuff. So it's a super good tool. Yeah, kudos for high exam grades. That's great. It's helpful because we humans tend to focus on the negatives, especially within ourselves and our own work. So having somebody outside of you say you did a really good job, like you're like, oh, hey, maybe I did, So yeah, weekly announcements are great, and you can delay those. And so you can delay them to just hit every week. And I have seen that I communicate too much sometimes in my evaluations, but only once or twice, and only when I just sort of went haywire and was sending like 5 and 6 announcements a week. So it's usually not not bad. So. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate it. I really do. If you have any questions, if you need any help, if you need us for anything, you can email help@uncc.edu, and that'll get filtered through. And so we'll be able to help you, or you'll be assigned to the appropriate person. We have teaching guides at teaching.uncc.edu. We have FAQs at spaces.uncc.edu. Those are a little harder to navigate, but still very useful. You have the Canvas help tool that's built into Canvas on this little help menu on the bottom left. I highly, highly, highly recommend using this awesome template, this Canvas template that Jules has created and that we put together, because Jules recently went through and made sure that there was one for fall and spring and summer 1 and summer 2. So it's already has all the dates unless they change them, but it's even got instructions for how to change those dates. And I'll just tell you all, have a wonderful weekend. Please do attend to the next events. The next one's on February 26th. And I very much appreciate all of your time and attention. Thank you so much.